Hello, everybody. Before we start, I just wanted to make sure that you can hear me. Um, so, can someone tell me if my audio is okay? Um, okay, sound coming fine. All right. So, we can start, I suppose. Um, good. Hello there. I hope you're well. I'm Hiramoni, and I'm back with another episode of Get Set Global. Today's episode is going to be very special, and you'll know why I say that as you listen through. Um, the current times have been difficult for most people. There is worry, there is pain, there is crisis, um, there is professional crisis, there is financial crisis. Our guests today, they all had some kind of crisis during the pandemic, and they all have got stories to tell. Story of feeling agitated, story of losing job, story of feeling disappointments in business. Can you relate to some of those emotions? Here is the thing, nothing connects us better than when we can relate. And like all the previous shows, today as well, the aim is to be able to connect with you through real life stories and put the message out there that we are all in this together. Now, before I invite the guest, I quickly wanted to touch upon what the British government is doing for the businesses and self-employed people who have been affected by the pandemic. So there is a scheme called the Farlow Scheme, and this is how the scheme works. For businesses who have been affected, their employees will get 80% of their salary from this scheme by the government. And salary cap is up to 2,500 per month. And the scheme works exactly the same way for self-employed people too. And this scheme is in place until end of July this year, and then the government plans to taper off the scheme in the coming months. Now, not everyone is getting the benefit from this scheme, and our guests will tell why during their conversation. And talking about conversation, it's my absolute pleasure to invite and introduce today's guest for the show. With immense pleasure, my first guest today is Chittal Vyas. Hi, Chittal.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to see you. Chittal is a professional dancer. She runs classes here in the UK. She runs a company called Dance Beats. She also performs at big events. She also has been doing work with Bollywood icons like Hrithik Roshan and Priyanka Chopra. And she has been awarded as well for promoting Indian culture in the UK. But she has got a story to tell. I'll come to you, Chittal, very soon. But before that, I'll just bring all our guests for the day. My second guest is Sid Chakraborty. Hi, Sid.
Hello.
Lovely
Hi.
to see you. So Sid
Hi.
he is a business owner. He runs a business here in the UK. He's from Assam in India. And because of the pandemic, how his business has been affected, we will get to know from him. There will be a story to hear from Sid. My third guest today is Issac Chohen. Hello,
Hi.
Issac. Good to
Hi.
see you. So Issac is a young professional. He works for he worked for a recruitment company as a recruiter, but unfortunately he lost his job during the pandemic. So we'll talk about that. My fourth guest today is Tonoya Barua. Hi, Tonoya.
Hi, Hira. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Tonoya is a chef. She runs a restaurant in London called Open Table. And what she specializes is artisan, unique kind of dishes that looks like art on a plate. So but we will know from her how the restaurant business has been impacted by the pandemic. And finally, we have got Rachel Ward. Hello, Rachel. Lovely
Hi.
to. So Rachel is a senior theatre scrub nurse practitioner. I hope I got that
Yeah,
right.
you did.
Right. Rachel is a frontline worker. She has been working with COVID-19 patients. She has gone through different kind of crisis during the pandemic, and we will hear from her story as well. But thank you to each one of you for joining in. And I think there is a feeling that, why only I am suffering, and people around sometimes feels like they're okay, but we don't know whether they're okay because we haven't asked and they haven't told. So I'm so grateful that all of you have said yes to come and tell your story. So that means a lot. I'll start with Chittal. Chittal, I understand that you are a full-time dancer. That's your profession, but because of the pandemic, you had to stop your classes. You were also preparing for some big events, which also got cancelled. And probably you don't know when all this will resume. I wanted to know, I mean, first the pandemic, then the lockdown, and in a sudden halt to everything. How has it impacted you and, of course, your professional career? And I generally want to know how you're doing. Are you well?
Well, to be honest, not really. The reason, that's loads of reason. I don't know like how to start. Basically, before pandemic, I was working kind of 70, 80 hours a week because as an artist, you have to, for one project, you have to work so much to get into the project. So, for example, if we have one event, we have to practice minimum 3 to 4 hours a day. On the top we have like our own commitment, own private lessons, the routine dance lessons, the routine events. So that's lots of things what we do every week. So it's like really you wake up 7 and you sleep at 12, and then wake up 7 and then work whole day till 12 and then you sleep. And as the pandemic came, like we all artists, all my dancers, everyone were working so hard to do the, like we had like 5 biggest project for Holi, and
Hmm.
it's all got one by one. They just started calling us because we didn't know that like this COVID-19 gonna be so big. So in
Yeah.
the beginning, they just started saying, okay, we're not doing the event. I was feeling so bad. Like I was like, why me? Why my events are just getting cancelled? Because on that time there was no lockdown, and
Mm.
only the news were coming. And it was, for me, it was so challenging to even let the dancers know that there will be no events where you are practicing every day, making effort to come to the dance school and do the like a performance practice.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like really bad position. I was thinking like I'm the bad one who are just telling everyone, okay, after all this practice, you're not performing.
Sure.
And then it's just started coming up that my dance class is getting closed because of this lockdown.
Mm.
So suddenly, from 70 hours work a week, I'm working 0 hours a week. And for me, it's just to in a lockdown waiting every day when it's gonna go better, when is my next project, or when my dance school gonna go open. Then I decided to do some online so that maybe help my students and like to make myself active as well. But it's not working really how it should be.
Sure.
I have in my routine class I have 120 students. I run in a different like a places in London, and right now I don't even have a 12 students. I have only 8 a
Well,
week.
okay. Okay. So that also has got an impact in terms of income, obviously. Can
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And it is hard, isn't it? Because, people would say that, we should be grateful for what we have got. But when you don't have income almost for last 3, 4 months, and we don't know where this is all
When
going,
it's back.
It's
So
very
it's not even the financial, but the time is the mental things, like you waiting every day, every morning. You supposed to do this practice, this classes, this rehearsal, this meeting. Basically, you don't have nothing.
sure.
So for us to be in a busy schedule, to be like a blank schedule where you don't even like know this is like a holiday, so you don't even feel good. That like sometimes my husband says you've been working 15 like last 15 years more than 60, 70 hours a week, so
Yeah,
it's a good time. So he's trying to convince me in that way, but actually if you see from like my place, you feel that it's not that easy. What you
no,
are saying, take rest, is no rest.
no,
It's just like a mentally, like how you gonna manage all the financial problems. And on the top, I didn't even get the furlough being a self-employed, because only since last year I just put myself as a self-employee. And the
yeah,
government said because your other income is bigger than your dancing income,
hmm,
so because they're just calculating in a different way, they say I'm not going to get nothing. So basically from government, which I got the award from the parliament saying that I'm doing the best service for the nation, and when it comes to help me out, they didn't do nothing. They just
sure.
said, I'm sorry, Chittal, we can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, that's
So
that's that's sad.
that's really exactly. So being an artist, when you get this kind of like reward back from the government, you really feel bad.
Sure. Yeah, I'll come to you about the finance part, but thank you for sharing, just being so honest what you're going through. No, that means a lot. So thank you. I will come to Sid now. Sid, for most of us, lockdown just came so quickly, so suddenly. We were not ready for it. And I'm sure probably it was similar for you as well. Um, and how did you process it all in terms of making sense of what's going on around, and also what it means to your business in so many different ways? Did you panic, or do you still panic? I mean, how, if you could just talk us through how the pandemic, or more probably the lockdown, has impacted your business.
Yeah, thanks, Hira, for having me. This lockdown, like this situation, we've been watching very closely since middle of January because I have got some, connections with China as well. Like we have got some supplies over there. We have seen how they have been impacted due to lockdown. So yeah, we know that it's just a matter of time when that will hit our country. Okay,
Yeah.
so we had a little bit of early warning, kind of, but only thing is that when it was in full swing in China, the life here was very normal, and here in India, in many parts of the world, which was very unusual for us when we tried to reach out to the government and to find out, how it's going to impact us and all. There was no clarity as such. That is during the end of January, early parts of February. But but over the time, after a few weeks, from the end of February, I would say just before few weeks of lockdown, compared to many countries, I think UK handled it extremely well. Like there was lots of information for us. We have received advisories, guidance at every step. All the services which will be impacted were known to us way beforehand. In fact, strangely enough, I received phone calls from, this customs and revenue
Yeah.
that because I had a lot of containers in the pipeline and somewhere in Indian port, somewhere on water, on ship. They said, like, you don't have to worry anything. Everything will run as usual. There will be no delay. So
Oh,
that was very reassuring for us, reassuring because for us, we were panicking because we have seen what happened to people in China. Like my supplies were really badly stocked over there. But here, like when it landed, everything was very smoothly been done. Everything was fine. But to the point of getting the stuff to UK, to this country. But but on the other end, on the sales side, there was not much clarity. Like there was no information from government going out to people. Like, they were only trying to say that all the supermarkets will remain open and few other stuff, but they could have gone a bit further ahead and say that all the supplies, all the people who have got online presence and all, it's all running as normal, because all the phone calls I receive from my customers are, first thing they say is, are you open? Are you open? Are you delivering? Are you running as normal? So that didn't help. Like, if there was enough information out to people in
Yes.
that aspect, that would help. But
Yes.
but on the hindsight, when I looked at other country, how they have managed, I think we are extremely lucky in that aspect, I would
Yeah.
say. And
Yeah.
just one more thing, like, like, say this situation is not something, all could prepare, okay? So we will have to go through this situation, and I think over the time, I think the government, or or the machinery of the government have processed the information, and they have, over the time, now when you look back, now things, they have tried to normalize situation as best as they can, and with very little impact to some businesses. But having said that, I can see that there are a lot of other businesses, they have really suffered badly, who are mainly into customer oriented,
Yes.
But
Yeah.
these are unusual time for everybody.
Absolutely. Like
That's
you
right.
said, that yeah, some sectors definitely have hit harder than
Yeah,
others,
it
and
is. It
I
is.
think
It is.
I think also what you said is, like
Mm.
everybody, people were in shock at the beginning, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they didn't quite
Mm.
know what to do. And it would have been
Yeah.
probably a good idea if government could
Yeah,
make some things a
yeah,
bit more
yeah,
clear.
yeah. But one thing is, like, when you look at other countries, especially when you look back in India, like, compared to that, we are extremely lucky the way it's been handled. Okay, because it's not easy for anybody. It is difficult because there is no mechanism. Maybe next year, if we have this COVID again, then we will be well prepared. But this is something like once in a lifetime, so
Yeah.
you cannot complain.
No, no,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. But no, thank you for everything that you have shared. Coming to Isaac, yeah, great. Um, Isaac, I mean, one of the sectors which has been hit hard is recruitment sector, obviously.
Yeah.
That's because, most of the companies, they have kind of sealed their recruitment process, not hiring new people. You worked for a recruitment company as a recruiter. You were doing fine in the job. And then the pandemic happened and things changed for you. Um, if you are okay to share your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth specifying what area I worked in, because I think it's quite relevant. So I was recruiting for contract staff, not permanent staff, for a start. So it's temporary staff, often needed at short notice. And I was also recruiting in the IT sector, sort of software developers. And I think the reason it's worth mentioning that is that, firstly, when you get to a crisis, when people do need staff, it usually is the temporary staff, not the permanent staff. So I suppose I was a little bit lucky there. It was certainly less hit than the permanent recruitment. But also, software development is one of the easiest jobs to do from home. It's not like the events industry. It's not like, a lot of these industries have been hit really hard. So I suppose in that sense, I was quite lucky. But at the same time, there are a lot of clients that we worked with where, sure, they might occasionally need software developers, but their actual business model was not based around software development. We worked with large companies that did have to shut down because of lockdown. And I think the first thing that happens is I got a lot more pressure put on me to make placements, to essentially sort of do the deals that you need to do to keep the money coming into the company. But at the same time as the pressure's being put on me to do those things, it was a lot harder to achieve that. A lot of the people that I wanted to do business with were shutting down. And I was also quite conscious of the fact that if during a global crisis, if I phone up and say, "Hi, have you got any jobs you want me to place?" That's very, very insensitive. It's a horrible way to conduct your business. And so I had to kind of balance keeping that relationship going with my clients, so that if there was any business to be done, I could have that relationship ready, versus not being too pushy, not being constantly hounding them for business that they just didn't have.
No.
So I think the first thing that went through my mind was I needed good excuses to actually talk to these people. I needed reasons to reach out to my potential clients that were a bit less salesy. So I spoke to loads of people about their COVID strategy. I spoke to loads of different businesses and sort of said, look, I'm sharing information about how other people are handling this, a little bit like what you're doing, but on a sort of business to business perspective. But ultimately, I mean, it obviously didn't work out. You know, I'm not in recruitment anymore. And I think it was just a mixture of poor timing and you know, the situation being what it is. It's very, very difficult to succeed in that market.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think what you said also understandable. I think that market isn't there, and like everyone else, you know, I think the first thing businesses are doing is just cut costs and make redundant, and it's another thing whether it's the right strategy, but that's what they do. But it's an unfortunate thing. We'll come to you about your next plan, you know, what your next steps that you're preparing for. But my question to Tonoya now. Tonoya, we just spoke about recruitment sector, but another sector which has been hit hard is hospitality sector. The restaurant, pubs, and hotels. They were closed from when? From I think end of March.
It's 23rd of March to be precise.
Yeah, okay. And it finally got opened last Saturday. But I think people's behavior has changed. I mean, you know, they're not going out as much. They're not eating out as much. So I wanted to know how you doing in terms of your business, the restaurant business, how it's been affected, and also you, how you doing. So yeah, would like to know about your story.
Let me start with the dreadful day of 23rd March, where with teary eyes we had to shut down all operations. I'm a chef by profession, and we run this artisanal catering company along with restaurant service. So it was perhaps the toughest 6 weeks, mentally, emotionally, to cope with. And those 6 weeks, we really didn't know what was coming, really. The first phase of lockdown got relaxed, and we resumed work. But you know what? It was not the same. We didn't have enough business. We didn't have enough footfall to keep the business running for 6 days a week, which was like the usual thing when it came to restaurant service. Secondly, our revenue streams from private events, corporate events, weddings, all got cancelled. So the struggle is real. And coming to business help from the government, though they announced furlough scheme and business interruption loan, but as a startup company, we were not eligible for any of those. So that's how our first phase
Yeah.
went. And from May onwards, when we started work again, we had to adapt to the government protocol of social distancing. And the only thing in the food sector what we could do is take away and deliveries, which was not what we do. We are fine dining, sit down kind of a business. So to adapt to the new normal wasn't really easy, but we are
Yeah.
trying. Every day is a struggle, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I think there is a really common theme here. Everybody is talking the same somewhere. The initial phase was the shock phase, and then things started, you know, slowly, but things are still changing. I think adaptation probably is the key for any business. I'll come to you to know more about your plans for future. But now I'm coming to Rachel. Rachel, everybody is here talking about their, you know, professional or business crisis. Maybe it's a strong word, but let's just go with that. But you have a different kind of crisis. You don't have those kind of crises because you were working throughout, and because you were working, you had to go through some other experience. You being a first frontline worker working with COVID-19 patients, you had to stay away from your family, from your children, 9 consecutive weeks. I think that's a long, long time. So I kind of want to know, how difficult was it to be at a workplace, with dealing with critical situations, and then not being able to go home, see your family? How tough has that been? I mean, just share your story.
Obviously, my son has underlying health problems, so the opportunity came for me to move out and shield away from them, so I could still do my job. It was difficult. The first day moving out was horrible. I cried going to work because I left my 2 children at home and my husband. But because I wanted to do my job, it was something I had to do. Living in the hotel was all right. It wasn't home. I could see my children and my husband from a distance, but obviously I had to social distance all the time. Got some really good friends who used to help us out and feed us, because obviously the hotel wasn't feeding us. And we all supported each other at work. It was difficult. It's just like everybody else. We didn't know much about COVID. We were all worried. We were all scared. We were going into work on a day-to-day basis, and the guidelines kept changing. So one day, we could do one thing, but we couldn't do it the next day. And the patients, it was just horrendous watching the patients with COVID. And the same as everybody else. It wasn't a nice experience, but it's an experience what we will all learn from. And if it happens again, we'll all be prepared for it as well. And like everybody else said, I think we were prepared for it because we had other countries to go off, so we could learn from other people's experience, and we were one step ahead because of the time lapse of it coming into the UK.
Absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for this, Rachel, because sometimes, we get so caught up in our own problems that we forget there are people out there like you who are sacrificing so much to keep this country going. I think it's such a powerful story. Thank you. Now coming to Chittal again. Chittal, we talked about, how your professional career has been almost come to a halt, which is actually quite a sad part. Coming to the finance side, you have just mentioned that you are not covered by the Farlow Scheme. I kind of want to know how you're doing financially. Are you worried for the current future? Near future? How are you going to cope financially? Any kind of worry? Is it a worrying period for you?
Yeah, of course, because it's like you've been earning, and you actually having a £0 income. So at the moment, my husband is helping us out. It's not gonna run for a long time. Then if it's just happening like this, because entertainment industry come all the way at the end. So I'm not gonna ask someone like, "Are you getting married? Can I please come and perform? Give me some money." So I cannot do this because my profession is like performing in a different place and running the dance school. So dance school is just is my hobby, which I'm teaching. My main profession is performances, what we do in the different award shows and the weddings and the birthday parties and things like that. So for us, it is like really big worry, like how am I going to survive if it's just continue happens, and like people are saying it's going to be another lockdown. So that's another worry, that if there will be another lockdown, then there will be no income. Shall I start doing some another work? So it's so many things comes in my mind, like how to survive. And I have my daughter as well. So it's like, it's not that easy, to be honest. Like how you living your life, and because you don't have no income, your living style get completely changed as well.
Sure. And then we have plans, right? When something like this happens, none of those plans you can work on.
Exactly.
I suppose I think that's another issue. But
and you have a whole year planned in advance, that this is what you're gonna do, this is how you save the money, this is how you utilize, this is what you're gonna do, this is how you're gonna do the things, and it's just suddenly all get collapse.
Yeah, it's hard, but
so financially it's like a big impact, for especially for like my kind of people, like who are artists.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. You may know about these places already. Citizens Advice Bureau and some charitable organizations like Turn to You. They are good places to go to and ask for advice. They have, there can be schemes out there which probably, which way government can help, if not Farlow scheme. I think it's similar for India as well. People are not so aware that there are schemes that, actually government can help financially. So if you have not looked at Citizens Advice Bureau, I think it's a good place to go to and
They
see.
are saying something like they're gonna do some new scheme in end of August.
Okay.
So especially for the artists like who are having like a more into the entertainment, so they're trying to get some cover for the entertainment industry. So let's
Okay.
see what it comes up.
Sure.
Hopefully there's something good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope for the best. Coming to Sid, Sid, because we're talking about the finance bit now, I think my question to you would be similar. Have you been impacted financially as well? And are you covered by the Farlow scheme at all? I also wanted to know, are you kind of worried and concerned about future prospects, knowing that the country is kind of slipped into recession, people's buying behaviors are changing? Are you concerned in any way?
Yeah, like say my business is mainly into the wholesale side where like I import stuff from UK to UK and then sell it to businesses, mainly the brick and mortar businesses, which are completely closed since lockdown. So technically, I have got zero revenue coming from those clients, and to add to that worry, I have got warehouse full of stock, which because normally this is our best season time because summer is the time where we sell most of our products. So just think about a situation where you have got warehouse full of stock and we haven't got any client to supply. And although we had a lot of orders in the pipeline, but we are very hesitant to supply to them because they're locked. And secondly, it's a risk, big risk we will be taking, even now when it's open. So just to, like any other businesses, we were panicking at the start, but what we did is like, we had a small online portal where we used to sell our end of the line products, mainly the rejected products and all. So we have developed that into a full online shop where
Oh,
we uploaded all entire product portfolio. We also put up a eBay shop, and it picked up extremely well.
good.
In fact, in last 2 months, I managed to become the power seller, which is very unusual to become within 2 months. Okay, so it is basically we just all have to explore new avenues. Like suppose whenever you have got one avenue closed, then sometime if you look around, you will always see that some other avenues might open up. And these government schemes, like one you were mentioning earlier about the furlough scheme, although we are eligible for that, but we haven't opted for it because that's strictly for the people whose businesses are affected, and we cannot be classed under that. But we have received, like say, there's a bounce back loan and few other grants as well, which helped us a lot. But those are all the short term. But going forward, we don't know how this economy will pan out, because we are anticipating a big slowdown coming days.
Yeah.
And we all are worried as much as like anybody. But let's see. I think the challenge is to just keep ourselves lean as much as possible and then just look for, the challenge is to see ahead. If we see ahead the problem, way ahead, then at least we'll have a chance to steer away from the problem. But if we do nothing and just wait for it to hit us, then it's too late, I'm afraid. I think it goes on for everybody.
Yeah, I know, such a good point. I think what we just discussed a while back with Tonoya, it's about just kind of adapting what the market
Yeah,
wants. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
think you
yeah,
you
yeah.
managed to
These are unusual time. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. These are unusual time for all of us. Yeah.
absolutely. But a good point is you managed to shift very quickly. So I think
Yeah,
good
yeah,
on
and
you.
this is something now when we look back, now we just feel like, we should have explored this avenue way earlier.
You didn't
But
need to.
see, like this things, Yeah, I didn't need to, but now we feel like on the hindsight that we could have. And just to, if I had got time, like there's another company like say who used to deliver our products, and they are heavily impacted because they have got large wagons and they only supply in big load to the businesses. Like he used to supply my products, and he was just sitting doing nothing. And what they have done is because they have got the entire IT infrastructure, all the network across the country, they have changed into the groupies where like instead of full wagon, they just collected in small volume, 1 ton, half-ton product from small businesses. They put it all in one wagon and then ship it to another destination where they have got another company lined up. So they have adapted themselves very quickly, and in this was short span of 2 months, they are back again. They are back again, and they are flourishing again.
Yeah.
So it's just how quickly you can change yourself. I think that's the challenge we all have.
Yeah, that's a lesson to learn. No, well said. Well
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
Yeah. So coming to Issac, Issac, I think, yeah, great. We now would like to know, obviously, what's the next stage for you. What you're planning to do. Are you looking for another job? Are you wanting to move sector? That's one thing that would like to know. Plus, also, not sure if you don't work for an employer, if you can be covered by a Farlow scheme. Would like to know that as well. And how are you doing financially until you have the next job?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, like a lot of people that weren't put on furlough or that weren't eligible for furlough, I went from having an income to having zero income, which is, a huge thing to have to adjust to. So the first thing I did was I did actually get a different recruitment job with a different company, one that was hiring, and started up there. But I very, very quickly realized that it was going to burn me out. They were asking a lot from me and more than I could really do. So I sort of left that fairly quickly. And that was quite a scary step. I left a job in the middle of a pandemic, which was potentially not the smartest thing to do. But I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't going to be invested in it long term. I kind of made the decision to leave the industry, having come to the conclusion that it wasn't for me. And I think that that was the right decision. In terms of what sort of support is eligible, if you have no employer, what sort of support you're eligible for. I mean, there's the obvious sort of unemployment benefit, that sort of stuff, which I briefly looked into. I've actually since found a job, which is sort of fortunate for me, at least. I'm sort of fundraising for a telephone fundraising company for charities, which is a job I've done before with this particular company. Sort of left it to move on to a more sort of career job, but it absolutely suits my needs at the moment. It's something to keep the money coming in, and I think what's good about it for me as well is that it allows me to be more selective about what I do apply for. I think when I first lost that recruitment job, when I was sort of got rid of as part of the cost cutting process, I took the first job I could get because I knew that I didn't have a job and I knew I needed a job. And, that's your instinct, is to take paid work the second you can get it. Whereas having something, even if it's something that, it's not quite as high paying, it's not the sort of stuff that I want to be doing for the rest of my life by any means, but having something in the background means that I can now apply for jobs that I would like to have. So I'm now looking at ideally transitioning into the civil service sector, which is something that I would quite like to do. So I've sent forward applications there. I've got some feedback on some of them, and I'm going down that route. So yeah, that's sort of a rundown, I guess, of my thought process during and what my next steps are.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. While you're still looking for what you want to do, you're still working in a voluntary sector. You're still, upping your, I think working on your skills. I think, that's a really good point, that while you're working for a better one, you're still managing to get a job. So yeah, that's fantastic. Tonoya, coming to you. I mean, one of the biggest impacts, obviously, of all of this is on people's finances. So I think same question for you as well. Are you covered by the Farlow, which I think you are not, you explained before. But you have got staff as well, staff members to look after. So I want to know, obviously, how you dealing with your finances and how you managing your staff's livelihood as well. And like, I asked Sid, I also want to know from you, are you concerned about the future prospects, knowing, people are still worried about going out, eating out, and social distancing definitely doesn't give them the same experience of dining out as they are used to. So does it all concern you?
To be honest, yes. It's such a vicious blow to the entire industry globally. Scores of hotels and restaurants shutting down and thousands of job losses. It's unbelievable that in 3 months it could impact so much. Um, Regarding our business, like I said, that all our revenue streams from our private events, private weddings, corporate events have all got cancelled. And yes, it has impacted tremendously. Our staff, luckily, they are on furlough. Plus, we are working on a less number of staff who are part timers now. And also, the like you mentioned about the experience of fine dining is not there anymore. The social distancing measures, and to follow the protocol, it just doesn't help. 4th of July, when the government announced that the pubs and restaurants can open dine-in experience for guests again, keeping 1 meter distance and stuff like that for a restaurants. For a restaurant of our size, which is about 45 covers, that means you make it 50%. And I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not a very practical measure. So can't really. Um, I, in the horizon, probably yes, there is a silver lining, but only time can tell. We opened up the terrace for guests to come. Maybe they'll enjoy cocktails and drinks and all. But the footfall was really negligible and nothing to be happy about. We were extremely disheartened and sad, but you know what, this year, just keeping fingers crossed, we have to stay afloat, and that's all we can hope for. I mean, yes, takeaway has picked up. It keeping aside, I mean, something to move on, something to take care of your own self and your employees. So yeah, takeaway and delivery has picked up, and it's doing okay, if I can put it that way. But yes, that is not our idea of our business model. So yeah, re-strategizing at every step is what we are doing, and trying to just keep ourselves afloat.
Yeah,
To be
no,
honest,
wonderful, wonderful. I think it's just reacting to the market, moving
yeah,
from fine
absolutely.
dine to takeaway. But, this model, takeaway business model, can be lucrative, knowing that maybe, you can cut down on costs, but not necessarily have to cut down on menu prices. I mean, do you think that may be lucrative in the coming times?
It is not a bad model, to be honest, but you aspire to do something right in life. So when we started this food business, leaving, I was a banker before. So after a long 10 years of being in the finance industry, you give up your career to do something that you're passionate about.
Sure.
And then to adapt to changes like this, it can be really emotionally and mentally draining. And so yes, it's been really sketchy last couple of months.
Sure.
So we can only hope for the best.
Only
Yeah,
hope for the best. Good luck with
yeah.
everything, really.
Thank you.
Rachel, I mean, we have been hearing how people are talking about their, businesses and trying to still adapt and make sense of everything. Um, you obviously have had a totally different experience. If I say, or if you were given a choice to stay with your family, but not earn anything during the pandemic, how long that may be, what would you choose and why?
I would still chose to do my job. I came into this profession because I want to make a difference for patients and make their experience a better experience. And wouldn't have been able to live with my conscience if I walked away at a time of difficulties when the NHS is in dire straits and needs all the frontline workers it possibly have. So if the pandemic happens again, I would do exactly the same again. As much as I don't want to move away from my family again, I would do anything to protect them. So if needs be, I would do it again.
Wow, that's so wonderfully put in. Because, we sometimes, like I said, we forget that, all the sacrifices you guys are doing. And I think it's a bigger purpose, which doesn't involve family or finances, something that's beyond than wanting to serve. So thank you for that beautiful story.
Thank you.
I am going to come to Chittal now. Chittal, has it been quite hard to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel? Has it been quite worrying? And can you see the bigger picture or like I said, light at the end of the tunnel? Is it quite hard for now?
It's very hard. I think till 2021, it's not gonna be normal, especially for, as I said, the entertainment industry, because it comes all the way at the end. Even at the moment, like weddings and all the other events, the maximum they're saying 30 people. So it's like a house party, house entertainment where they don't really need the entertainers. So for us, if you see in a way, until the life goes back to normal, completely normal, we're not gonna be back on track. But hopefully I heard the leisure centers are going to open very soon.
Okay.
So hopefully, I can restart my dance school. So at least that can take my, it's like you are with the students all the time and you get the appreciation, you get the motivation, you motivate them. So for example, like I mean, like my business in a way, if you say the what I do, my character is all about the motivation and like helping each other and things like that. And when it stops, you feel like really frustrating. Like, why me? Is always feel like, why me? Like when everyone got the furlough, I didn't get it. I was like, why me? Why I'm the one who are just in the center? But I think when I just listening to everyone today, I feel like we all kind of in the same boat, but in a different way. It's a different experience.
Yeah,
But
I think
for
that
me, it's a big challenge. Hopefully, the life gets back to normal. They find some vaccine or something, and they're gonna start doing the events.
it will all happen. But I think what you said is what this was the whole idea, that we feel that only we are suffering, but when we talk, we know that I think people are suffering in their own ways. And I think it's a time to understand, to be compassionate. And that's the whole idea. And hopefully soon, something better happens. But wish you all the luck, Chittal, for
Thank you.
everything. Sid, you have already touched upon the economy of the UK, but I want to know. I mean, what do you think is going to be the economy of UK like in the coming months? You think, and have you been also following India? Do you think how Indian economy is going to be affected in the coming months? Any thoughts?
I think in this situation we all are together. Like it's not one country's problem, in my opinion. It's like something when we are struggling with the lockdown and all, then each country have to coordinate with another country in a very different way. It's basically now, if I have to give you an example now, the lockdown when it started in India, it wasn't planned well. Okay, the way we were receiving informations, prior to the lockdown, how we need to deal ourselves, there was not much information coming out to businesses in India. It was very abrupt, like, my suppliers, if I can give you an example, like there were a lot of containers were in transit to the port when they abruptly shut down the entire Gujarat, Rajasthan, and those places. And most of their cargo got stuck in the road. Drivers fled from the truck. People started looting, and the suppliers couldn't reach out to the local authority or police. Did nothing. Most of their cargoes got looted. So that happened, and that impacted us here as well. So all will have to coordinate in a proper way. Now the port in India has opened up, but there were no people to run the cranes. Out of 120 cranes, only 20 cranes are operational because all the crane drivers have gone back to their own places. Now government should have protected them, because if you don't look into that side of things, if you are being myopic, you are only looking at just fighting the COVID,
Yeah.
people will now die out of hunger. Okay, there are a lot of lives connected to these businesses. Now suppose, now if you say for one container coming out of India, it is not the supplier who makes the profit. There are a lot of CHA crane operators, the people who put the crates in the crane. There are a lot of the fumigation companies, there's several companies linked to that. Okay, if you say that volume drops, then whole that community around those containers will get affected. And I think somewhere government in India is a bit myopic. They're not looking clearly into that, and those will have a very long-term impact. Now, for us, now if we don't get a container now, we will not be buying it probably till next summer. And during this whole process, who is going to suffer? We will, of course, suffer, but the main sufferer will be people back in India. So I think this needs to have a very holistic approach, in my opinion. Like, at the minute, I believe like the way UK learned from their mistakes very quickly, but back in India, I think it's been very slow, in my opinion, and also it's very regional. Now the policies, I can only tell you about the states which where I've been impacted. Okay, basically, suppliers are based in Rajasthan, and their cargo moves from Rajasthan to Gujarat, and then it comes out by a port. In those two states, they have got a different, lockdown regimes. I can say that one have got certain exemption, and another state have not. So there should be one approach for the entire country. There should be one common directive. That way, it will have a proper coordination between state to state.
Yeah.
And one state, and there shouldn't be any political, that inclination. It should be way above that, because this is not something where politics comes into play. I think we should come out of it. This is a problem for the whole globe, whole world.
Yeah.
So we all should come out of it and try to, fight against it collectively, in my opinion. If one government is BJP, one government is Congress, and if the cargo moves from BJP state to Congress, there shouldn't be anything like, oh no, we are not letting this cargo out. Those shouldn't be there. But I
Yeah.
think those are something I think like in government of India should look into it properly, in my opinion, because these are affecting everybody now. And
Yeah.
India is the second largest exporter, and now look at the state of the port. They can't even run the 120 cranes properly. There's a huge logjam in the port, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it.
Yeah, it's a very,
So,
very good point. Really good point,
yeah.
because it takes so much time and effort to build and business with other countries, and
Yeah.
if you don't manage it well, it can have a
Yeah.
major impact for the years to come. I think
Yeah,
it's something to
exactly.
keep
And
in
it is
mind.
just a
Yeah,
matter of time. Suppose I am sitting here as a buyer, okay? If I cannot get hold of products from India, I will probably switch to China, because China have
absolutely.
opened up completely.
Yeah,
Completely. And in fact, they have lowered the shipping price because they just try to maximize the situation. And
yeah,
in India, the shipping price has gone 4 times higher. Okay, and there is no control from the government. The government could have intervened, but there is no control from the government. But in China, if you compare both countries, because from here we have got the opportunity to look at both the countries, but China is very proactive in this situation. They're
yeah,
trying to, this, cash in probably what India is not being able to do it.
yeah.
And
Such
this
a
is
good one.
something, yeah, this is so pity, because I'm from India and I like India to be at the top, and the way things are happening, and nobody seems to be, and I think press is not touching upon those topics because it is not something like probably in public knowledge. I don't know why. But these are the areas where you should really put focus on, in my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I really hope this points reach somewhere where it should reach.
Yeah, I hope
Really.
so. Yeah.
Coming to Isaac. Isaac, can you hear me? Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So Isaac, are you glad in a way that all this has happened to you at an early stage of your career? Or do you actually think that the newcomers are the most disadvantaged ones, from this pandemic? What's your thought?
For me personally, I think if it's going to happen, now was probably the best time for it to happen, because I've still got, I've got time to go down a different path, and not that that there's ever a cut-off point. There's always the opportunity to go down a different path, of course. But I think I'm speaking as somebody that left university and then spent a year doing a small fundraising job and then trying to get into recruitment. I sort of took my time trying to pick a career anyway. I think for a lot of the young people out there that are a lot more sort of career motivated, myself, a lot more driven in that sense, I think this is terrible timing. Because if I had got a degree that was specific to a particular job, I got a philosophy degree. There's no, unless you want to be a philosophy teacher, there's not loads of direct career paths that come as a result of that. If I had an engineering degree and I wanted to be an engineer and I'd got a placement in a firm and I was ready to start, and then this happens and that firm pulls that placement because they're downsizing, then suddenly the next 20 years of your life that you had planned out could go out the window. And I'm fortunate in that I could use the opportunity for change, so it's been a catalyst for me. But I don't think that that's necessarily true for a lot of young people. I think for a lot of young people that are wanting to go down a path that they've already decided on, it's a hard time for it to happen, because right at the beginning of your career is when you can, you really need to get yourself out there. You haven't got the experience, you've got your qualifications, but of course, if it's been a year or two since you got them, there are other people who are fresh out of university who've got even more up-to-date qualifications. So yeah, I think it depends on your situation.
So true. I think there is the other thing as well. Once we're out of all of this, the competition, because there are unemployment numbers are so high. So, the competition are also so much higher. So yeah, like you said, for some, it's quite an disadvantage. But then, like we have been saying.
So there's a lot of businesses that operate in a structure where they recruit fresh out of university students. And so there's a yearly cycle, obviously, where as you're coming out of your final year of university, you line up your placements. A lot of those businesses are deferring places for a year. And that, of course, means that next year there'll be 2 years worth of candidates applying for a single year's worth of spaces. So I think next year the competition for that sort of stuff is going to be astronomical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. But let's see how the next year pans out anyways. Coming to Tonoya. Tonoya, if anything you have learned out of this whole thing, pandemic, lockdown, all the crisis, what is that one thing that you have learned or taught you?
Well, in a nutshell, it's a crisis for all. In a nutshell, we will come out of it together, I'm hoping. Patience is one thing which I have learned, and adapting to new innovations, I would say, in our business is what has kept us going so far. So I think that is the way forward now. Just keep at it, stay afloat, and just wait for a better future next year. I mean, I don't see it bouncing back anytime before the year ends, and we can only hope for a brighter 2021.
That's a very positive message. We all hope that, or really hope that happens in 2021. But thank you. Before we finish this session, we are finishing with something positive. So thank you, Tonoya.
Thank you for having me.
Coming to Rachel. I think similar question for you as well. After going through things, you have had some real experience of seeing all the patients, dying in front of you. What is the biggest learning for you during the pandemic? Like one lesson that you have learned?
I think I would do anything for my family. Showing how strong I am as a person and how much I can lead people within my team, but also it showed some weaknesses, what I can pick up on and improve on. And that work really is just vocation, and how much you're willing to dedicate to it is. And obviously we dedicated, everybody in the NHS has dedicated the whole life to it, especially now in these unprecedented times where the COVID still here, hasn't gone, and it's probably not going to go anytime soon either. And everybody is just going to have to adapt to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been the message throughout, I think, that adaptation, whether it's work or at NHS, I mean, everywhere. I think that's the new normal adaptation, I think. I think we have come to an end of today's show. But before we end, I would like to thank each one of you because, like I said, um, people think that they are suffering, but until we speak, until we hear others, how do we know that it's just us? So thank you so much for coming, sharing your stories, and some really good points there. Some positive points came out as well. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank the Sentinel that they offered us this platform to discuss real issues from real people. I think that's what we need at times like this. And also to our audience for watching this show. I hope it was useful to all of you. And if you have got any subject that you would like to cover us in future, please do write to us. We will try and cover it. With that, all of you take good care, keep well, and see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.